Hello and welcome to the Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle. So, Peter, the world is becoming used to something that it didn't think that it would have to get used to: the return of Donald Trump. In Europe, in particular, they smugly assumed on January the 6th, 2021, that this is the last they'll have to endure of Donald Trump. And to their horror and chagrin, they're going to have to deal with him again. And they really are just completely at a loss to understand what had just happened. Because, and as we discussed the other day, it's not just his victory, but the magnitude of his victory that is so stunning. And so they don't quite know what to do. Of course, least of
They're
all,
feverishly deleting
yeah,
tweets.
exactly.
So
That's right.
it's like dealing with the 13-year-old girl.
That's exactly right. And of course, there's all sorts of things that they sort of worry about, like, hey, what's going to happen about all the prize foreign policy goals, like Ukraine and of course the Middle East. And of course, as you said, there's the issue of the things that they had said about him in the past. And I just want to show you a few examples because, of course, the worst, as oh, they're always the worst, are the British, because the British have, for some reason, adopted, despite the fact that the British and the Americans parted company, all 250 years ago, the British still somehow assume a kind of colonial suzerainty over the United States, as if somehow they have a right to comment on every aspect of American life, which they don't, of course, allow the Americans. I mean, it's not reciprocated, but they feel that. So they made all sorts of comments over the years, which I think will come back to haunt them. So just let me show you.
But
Yeah, go on.
it's the British ruling class has always looked down upon
Yeah,
Americans. Okay,
yeah,
and then particularly when the power relation flipped.
right,
Okay,
right.
it got even worse. Okay, but George is to use a very modern kind of idiomatic. They're very judgy. Okay, and they're
Yes.
very judgy about Americans and the Dominion, the Commonwealth, and
Yeah.
all of that. But there's and it's really interesting because it's not reciprocated. I mean, George and I have commented on this a lot. I mean, Americans, like a lot of Brits, okay, it's a very weird relationship.
You're absolutely right. In fact, the Americans are always very, very ridiculously flattering about the
Deferential.
British. They love the accents. They can't differentiate among the accents. They seem to love all of the accents, so they don't know what's a good accent and what's a bad accent. But they just love all of the British accents, and they love the British TV shows and the British movies, the British theater. They love coming to London to watch all those things, the changing of the guard and all this fancy
They
wardrobe.
love the king, the queen, the king.
Exactly. Both the Queen, whereas the British loved the Queen. They're not so enthusiastic about the
They
King.
should have they should have dissolved the monarchy after she died. Really, seriously, seriously. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
And that's but here they are, they were pontificating about Trump. And so let's look at
Are you
some
going to have Lamy? You pronounce it Lamy?
Lamy. We'll take a look at
Oh,
David
that guy takes the cake.
Lamy.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
He's the David Lamy is the UK Foreign Secretary, and so he's the one who's spoke out most strongly. So this goes back to 2020. At the time, Keir Starmer, having backstabbed Jeremy Corbyn to get the leadership of the Labour Party, had Keir Starmer writes to Boris Johnson asking him to urge Donald Trump to, quote, respect human rights amid George Floyd protest.
Is this the same guy that didn't respect the human rights of Julian Assange? Just one second.
That's exactly right. He was head of the Crown Prosecution Service at the
No.
time of the Julian Assange thing. Yeah. The UK, look at this. The UK has a moral obligation to speak out. They're very good at this. The moral obligation. The British have this
Do
moral
I need
obligation.
Do I need to upgrade what I'm imbibing here? I mean, if this is the level of moral clarity here, maybe I should step up. Your bottle is still in the kitchen. Okay.
That's right. That's the thing. You see, the British always have this moral. We have this moral high ground. You know, for most of the rest of the world, they think of the British as a kind of colonial predators. You know, people who had engaged in the slave trade, admittedly some time ago, but nonetheless, this is what they did. The idea that the British have some kind of a moral, duty to educate the world just doesn't buy it. So the UK has a moral obligation, and right away you're thinking, why? This is something that's happening in America. Why does the UK have a moral obligation to speak out about something that's happening in the United States? The British wouldn't accept American politicians to start pontificating about something that's happening on the streets of London. Anyway, he has this moral obligation to speak out. And then what happened was that he wrote a letter. This is 4th of June, 2020. He writes a letter to Boris Johnson, who was then the prime minister. It's kind of a long time ago. We've really forgotten about him. It says, Dear Prime Minister, in the House of Commons yesterday, I raised my shock and anger at the killing of George Floyd. Again, you're thinking, why? Why are you shocked and angry about the
Well,
killing of...
I didn't have shock and anger. Did you?
No, I didn't. I mean,
Wow. Okay. Wow.
this happened in
Hey,
Minneapolis.
it's not like Guinness. This traveled well, apparently. Okay.
So, um, and the response of the U.S. authorities to the peaceful protests. Again,
I
peaceful.
don't remember those peaceful
I don't
protests.
remember the peaceful. The mostly peaceful protest.
I do
Um,
remember that a Wendy's was burned down to the ground,
that's right, exactly. The
and a
peaceful.
few police stations were
Right.
destroyed,
That's right. There was a lot of that. And
and a lot of black-owned small businesses never.
were destroyed, and there was a lot of looting. Um, and again, he says the U.S. authorities. Well, we're talking about U.S. state authorities. None of this has anything to do with where we're going. With somehow it's to do with Trump. So, U.S. authorities to the peaceful protests. This has shone a spotlight on the racism, discrimination, and injustice experienced by those from Black and minority ethnic communities in the U.S. and across the world. So,
So the British government is sticking up for people of color. Okay, all right.
that's good.
One of the greatest colonial power in modern history. Okay, all right. But this is going swimmingly, isn't
This
it?
is going smooth. Yeah, very, very smooth. I welcome that you shared some of the concerns I raised with you and want to use this opportunity to explore what the British government is doing to urge the United States and President Trump to respect human rights and the fundamental democratic right to peaceful protest. So can you imagine this? This is the leader of the opposition in the UK talking to the UK Prime Minister that he's got to tell the President of the United States about human rights and about the fundamental democratic right to peaceful protest. I'm sure there'll be a receptive audience. I'm sure when you put in a phone call to the White House to tell President Trump or whoever is the president about the fundamental human right to peaceful protest, that they'll take that call and they'll be in a very good mood when you come to lecture them.
Well, if in this case, if he tries to call Trump, Trump's just going to say, send it back to reception downstairs.
That's right.
Oh no, it's going to be a very weird, stormy, cringy relationship. But George and I are going to have front row seats for this.
We're going to have front row seats, exactly, because there's the other aspect of it, which is his interference in the election, which which Trump did notice, even if Trump may have forgotten this from this is more than 4 years ago. He certainly will remember his interference in the election.
Yeah, whoever came up with that, low wattage there. I mean, that light bulb is just flickering. Okay, just unbelievable that someone would even consider something like that.
It really is. It really is. I am sure that you share my strongly held belief that the UK has a moral obligation to speak out in defense of these values, no matter where in the world they are challenged. No matter, speak out. We have to speak out on behalf of values. What's
And
sanctimonious?
why do you think, is he just like, and this is 2020, right?
This is 2020. Yeah.
Oh, so is he just like intentionally padding his CV for posterity? This is going into his library, after he leaves this world, oh, he was very concerned with the George Floyd. Yeah, yeah,
The
he had his
the
hand
that's
on the pulse. Yeah.
the sanctimoniousness of the British is unbelievable. I mean, it's only when you get to live there you find this exposure. No one else is this sanctimonious. No other leader of a country goes thinking that I have a right to lecture others on their moral failings. I mean, it's just unthinkable. Whatever you can say about Macron or Schultz or Angela Merkel, it would never occur to them to start lecturing somebody else on their moral failings. Well, I mean, except when it's the Serbs or some small country that they can bully, but they wouldn't dream of lecturing the United States on its moral failings. But this is the British mentality. We have this global moral responsibility. And then he says, with that in mind, I would like to ask you the following questions. Has the government raised its concerns through official channels about the reaction so far from US authorities to peaceful protests? Peaceful, so because we're very anxious about what's going on in Minnesota. We can't find it on the map, but we're very anxious about what's going on in Minnesota. What additional steps is the government planning to reiterate the importance of a peaceful and proportionate response to the protests in
But
the US?
again, this has been mentioned here, but this shows a fundamental misunderstanding of how the US works. Okay.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, if there's a riot in Minnesota, it has nothing to do with the president of the United
Nothing.
States.
And again, it just shows the ignorance, the absolute ignorance. I mean, the British, not only do they constantly opine on affairs in the United States, they're also amazingly ignorant about it. They don't understand that the head of the federal government has no say in what goes on inside states. Policing is a state matter. It's
I
not a
mean,
federal matter.
there are exceptional circumstances where but it is exceptional when the federal government will the desegregation in the South. Okay, I mean,
Right,
very,
but that was a very highly.
and that's a
I mean,
systemic issue.
exactly, and it was a very controversial issue. I mean,
Very.
yeah. So it was not like, oh, we do it on a regular basis. I mean, that was a very big deal when Eisenhower sent in the National Guard to Little Rock, Arkansas. But you're right. But this is policing. Actual policing is a state matter. Um, so here we have, what review is the government conducting to ensure UK exports are not being used in the suppression of democratic rights?
Well, they don't seem to be concerned about Palestinians
No,
now, do
yeah, exactly. It's interesting. UK exports. What? I don't understand. What are they exporting? What kind of stuff are they exporting? Truncheons? The Americans can't
I don't
make
know.
proper truncheons.
Do they make Bentleys in the U.S. anymore? Or
I don't know.
I don't know.
Many of our own black citizens seeing these images also feel palpable anger and anxiety. What steps is the government taking to reassure black communities in the UK? Why would the British government be seeking to reassure black communities about something that's going on in the United States? This is so stupid, and that Starmer thought that this is a really smart move, and of course he didn't know then about what really happened with George Floyd, even though even in those early days, it was obvious that there was a hell of a lot more to the story than the media were telling us. I mean, it was clear a lot, something really, a lot of things happened during that altercation, but nonetheless, he's rushing in and with this nonsense. The death of George Floyd has justifiably prompted anger and a burning desire for fundamental change. My desire is burning, and the change has to be fundamental.
As Minnesota was burning.
Exactly. The UK must be clear in showing that we understand this frustration and that we are ready to stand together with those who seek to tackle the injustice and inequality that remains within all our societies. And then, of course, he posed that photograph with Angela Rayner, who's now the deputy prime minister, taking the knee. He took the knee at the time. So that's Starmer. And then here in The Guardian, they've collected a few of the statements made by, helpfully, some UK politicians about Donald Trump. Not a fan. What UK politicians have said about Donald Trump before and now. Senior figures who criticized Trump in the past have tempered, voicing strong views, knowing he could return as president. So, like you said, you can try to delete stuff on your WhatsApp, but once you've tweeted it out, I mean, it's kind of out there. And then David Lammy, the UK Foreign Secretary, who is kind of as thick as two planks. In 2018, the then backbench Labour MP wrote, quote, Trump is not only a woman-hating, neo-Nazi sympathizing sociopath, he's also a profound threat to the international order that has been the foundation of Western progress for so long. What kind of a threat was he to the international order that has been?
This is, again, this is the absurdity of the left. Why did he write that, George? Does he know what he's talking about?
No,
Of course
he doesn't.
not.
You remember when recently?
You know why he wrote it? Because it made him feel so good.
Yes.
He's so good.
Right.
And he's just trying to, he again, he's like patting himself on the back.
Yes.
He's showing, that his identitarian politics trumps everything.
Right.
Okay. I mean, it's just so juvenile. It's just so ridiculous. I mean, using all of these attributions here. I mean, it's just it's not a serious person.
No, that's right. Neo-Nazi sympathizing. Now you remember recently he was talking about at the UN Security Council, I think he was talking about Ukraine. And then he said, as a black man, I have a particular sympathy for Ukraine, the colonial subjugation of the Ukrainians.
Okay, right.
As a black man.
But he's a black Brit.
It's very strange.
I really don't know what's going on in that man's head.
No, exactly. Kind of very. I think a lot of people were sort of sitting there scratching their heads. What does that even mean? As a black man, I have a particular sympathy for Ukraine. I mean, he is, as a black man, his ancestors had been enslaved by British slave traders and by the British colonial powers. What the hell has any of that got to do with Russia and Ukraine? I mean, you weren't enslaved by Russians.
Yeah, but he's obviously trying to paint Russia as some kind of colonial power. But Russia, as far as I know, I mean, I'm pretty sure I can say that, didn't enslave Africans.
No, I don't think it did. And then, as a foreign secretary, Lammy has sought to build bridges and joined Starmer at the dinner with Trump in New York. Well, that should work out well. And Kemi Badenoch, who's the new Tory party leader. The new conservative leader has spoken little of Trump, and unlike Robert Jenrick, her opponent in the party's recent contest did not say she would back him if she was an American. In 2017, the then London Assembly member, not yet an MP, tweeted that she was not a Trump fan, while condemning the city's mayor, Sadiq Khan, for immature grandstanding over the US president. However, on Wednesday, she congratulated Trump on his historic election victory. I mean, as far as Trump is concerned, who's she? Who's this? How do I even pronounce her name?
Well, I mean, she was, not yet an MP.
No, not yet an MP.
Okay, so that's kind of like, a San Francisco Assembly member commenting on Macron. Okay,
that's right. Yes.
Why would you be doing that?
Why exactly? That's exactly right. Yes. Badenoch is on the record about being a fan of Ron DeSantis. Why are you doing, again, you ask, why are you doing that? Why are you interfering in US politics? Why are you, you're preferring DeSantis to Trump? I mean, what is the point of this? You got nothing else to do? No problems in Britain that needs addressing?
Yeah, and and George and I are not in politics. We do not aspire to be in politics, and we are an equal opportunist when it comes to slagging somebody off.
Right,
Okay, but we're not politicians.
right,
Okay, not
right,
aspiring to be a politician. So you anyone that crosses our path, they're fair game. Okay,
right,
there's a target on you. Okay, but we're
right,
not in the game of politics.
right. No, that's exactly. I mean, because if you are in politics and you make these statements, then in some ways you're making some kind of an official pronouncement. Because you can be a journalist, but even then you're puzzled by why is a journalist in London pontificating about about his preferences and particularly when they get very emotional
Yeah.
about something that's going on in the United States.
Well, I mean, that's part of the snottiness of the European intelligentsia. And George and I have commented frequently that if you aspire or believe that you're a member of the intelligentsia, it most likely means you're not very intelligent.
No, that's right. Um, and then we get John Swinney, who is a Scottish First Minister. And he said, people in the United States of America should vote for Kamala Harris. And I have not come to that conclusion only because Donald Trump is opposed to Scottish independence. Um, again,
I didn't know Trump's position on that. Okay,
yeah,
so
I've not, exactly. I've never heard Trump making any kind of statement. I
I
mean,
mean,
he owns a golf course in
that's
Scotland.
right.
That's his only consideration about how does this affect my golf course?
Trump's only position on Scotland is how it affects his golf course. That's it. But that's the
And I
long and
imagine he probably thinks if Scotland goes independent, it's not going to be good for his golf course.
they could nationalize it. Okay.
Exactly. Yes. Trump's team called this, quote, an insult to the massive investment in Scotland made by the Trump family.
There you go. There you go.
That's right. After the results, Swinney tweeted his congratulations to Trump and pledged to stand fast in support of our values of fairness, democracy, and equality, ideals that America was built on. It's sort of ridiculous. You made all these statements, and now you say, "Oh no, my heartiest congratulations."
Yeah, these people, so Trump makes a comeback and then they go into tongue bath mode.
Yes.
Okay.
um, and they kind of assume, oh well, it's all water under the bridge. But you see, this isn't really water. I don't think it should be water under the bridge because there was no need for them to make these statements. I mean, let's say people are, Trump's political rivals and they made attacks on him. Then after the election is over, we said, okay, let's water under the bridge. Fine. You were doing what you're supposed to do in the political context. You said nasty things. Fine. The election's over. We can be friends. But these people, they didn't have to say any of these things. So this is gratuitous. And therefore, Trump shouldn't forgive these kinds of comments. And then Emily Thornberry. I love names like Thornberry. It's such an English name. Speaking in 2019, when she was shadow foreign secretary, the Labour MP argued that Trump should not have been granted a state visit to the UK. A state visit is an honor, and we don't think that this president deserves an honor, she said. He's a sexual predator, he's a racist, and it's right to say that. Where did she get this stuff? I mean, like saying all these things, like he's a sexual predator, he's a racist, and it's a right to say that. I mean, and you're right. They're doing this in order to feel good about themselves and to suck up to their
Well,
followers.
yeah, but also, I mean, first of all, she was this shadow foreign secretary, so not a decision maker. All right, someone in waiting. Okay,
Okay.
for non-British people here. But the state visit that is something that comes from the royal family, right?
It's the royal family, exactly. That's
Well,
what the
then,
statement. Yeah.
well, butt out, lady.
Right.
It's not your call.
That's right. That's right. But in any case, I mean, this is something that's done. If it's a U.S. president who comes to visit, then it's a state visit. I mean, the British know who the boss is. I mean, when the boss comes, you have to lay on the trappings. But
Trump did a great job on that visit, by the way. I
he did do a great job.
that was man, that gave us tons of material. Oh my,
And he liked the Queen. You remember
yeah, he loved the
he kept
Queen.
talking about how much he liked the Queen.
It's like both of them are like giving orders. Let's go this way. No, go this way.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you couldn't have scripted it. It was raw talent at
Right,
work. Okay.
right, right. And of course, the others were very snooty about him, but the Queen, she was very gracious, and she had, she's sensible enough to know that, Trump may not be your sort of person. He's, what we know what he is. He's crass, he's brash, he's arrogant. But you have to just accept him for what he is. A lot of the others weren't. I mean, they just simply would not accept Trump for who he was, and that's why she got on well with him.
I, you know, I'm neither here nor there when it comes to the royal family. You know why? Because I'm not British, so why should I care? Okay. However, she was a good old bird. She did her job well.
She did a
Okay.
job. Yeah, yeah. No, that's very true. And then she did it in 70 years. I mean, that's something. No, longer than that. Yeah, no, there was more like 75 years. Yeah. Um, so he's a sexual predator. Asked by the BBC on Wednesday if she still believed Trump was a racist sexual predator, Thornberry, who chairs the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, said, well, he is, but he's the president of the United States, and we need to work with him. Oh, well, that's good of you.
As she was wiping egg from her face. Yes.
That's right. Um, exactly. And this is an unnecessary faux pas. I mean, you scored an own goal. I mean, there was no reason for this. You could have, just kept your mouth shut.
Well, I mean, let's just say, because they want to prod you. Here's the most appropriate, mature answer. What do you think of President Trump? Well, that's up for the American people to decide.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But then you should have taken that view back then. If
And
you're
that's what I'm saying.
yeah, yeah,
That's what I'm
exactly.
saying.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London, he's there forever. He's this awful creature, but who seems to win these elections. I don't know. It's just the mystery.
There's no term limit.
No, there are no term limits. I wondered about that, but apparently no, there are no term limits. The London mayor is probably Trump's most outspoken critic among senior UK politicians, having clashed repeatedly with the US president. Trump has in turn attacked Khan, something the mayor has linked to subsequent upsurges in racist abuse and threats he faces. So he picks these fights, which is Sadiq Khan picked the fight because Trump didn't pick a fight with Sadiq Khan. He doesn't know who the hell Sadiq Khan is. So he picks a fight. Then when Trump responds, he said, "Oh, I'm facing racist abuse. Oh, poor little me. All these terrible people are attacking
Yeah,
me."
the mayor of London has no privilege at all.
No, no,
Sure.
no, that's right. In a statement after the result, Khan said, I know that many Londoners will be anxious about the outcome of the US presidential election. Why? Many will be fearful. Why? About what it will mean for democracy. Why? And for women's rights. Or how the result impacts the situation in the Middle East or the fate of Ukraine.
Well, maybe the mayor of London should um, uh, express his anger to the government, the British government. Okay.
Yes. Right,
About
exactly. It's the British government. Yeah, that's exactly right. It's the British government that you want to be concerned with. And then our favorite author, Timothy Garton Ash.
Oh, Oh, I met him when he was a much younger man. Okay, anyway.
Yes, yeah, me too. Yeah, I remember him in London. Very unctuous. I mean, even then, when I met him, he was much younger, but he was always very unctuous. Trump's return is terrible news for Ukraine. Europe should step into the breach, but will it?
Well, Timothy Garton-Ash, why don't you sign up and go right on over? Okay, okay.
Exactly. Nothing is
Can
stopping it.
you step into the breach?
That's
Go ahead.
right.
Go
That's right.
breaching. Go
Yes.
stepping.
Right. That's right. Now he may say that, oh, but I'm too old now. But no, you're not too old because Ukraine is, corralling people in their 60s and 70s. So I don't, you can't really bring up the excuse of being too old. So with Germany's government collapsing and Europeans so divided in their response to Trump, unity is essential, but elusive.
Well, I mean, what unity?
Exactly.
Unity.
What unity for what?
Yeah,
So,
and who's part of that unity? Okay, I mean, as we go through time, governments through Europe are being chucked out, people's careers are being destroyed, economies are being
that's right.
devastated, and so I mean, are you the beacon, Timothy Garton-Ash, of
That's
the unity?
exactly. Yeah.
People should be.
Yeah, that's it. We're going to do a podcast about the German political crisis in a little bit. Um, the first
I mean,
victim,
this guy just gets on under my
I know,
skin.
yeah, me too. The first victim of Donald Trump's second term as US president is likely to be Ukraine. The only people who can avert that disaster are us Europeans. That's, of course, again, a grammatical error. It should be we Europeans, but leave it aside. Yet our continent is in disarray.
I wonder why.
Germany's coalition government chose the day we woke up to news of Trump's triumph of all days to fall apart in bitter rancor. Unless Europe can somehow rise to the challenge, not just Ukraine, but the whole continent will be left weak, divided, and angry as we enter a new and dangerous period of European history.
That's why NATO has to get Moldova and Georgia in the war so they can fight in Ukraine.
So
Okay,
fighting for
Timothy Garton-Ash. Okay, yeah.
right, but the question then, of course, arises, and a very obvious question: why did Europe gamble on that Biden and people like Biden will be there forever? I mean, that you took a gamble and think, oh, great, we're all in on Ukraine. There was always a likelihood of a Trump return or somebody very similar to Trump returning. They threw everything their lot in with Biden, and now they're saying, "Oh, Europe, we're in disarray. What are we going to do? What are we going to do?" Well, don't don't burn your bridges. That would be a good
Yeah,
start.
and also, George, again, this how decrepit and stupid the European elites are, is that they don't want to take
No,
responsibility. They don't want to take any responsibility
right,
for this catastrophe on
right,
their own continent.
right.
Okay.
Yeah,
And George is absolutely right. I mean, you think nothing changes, everything changes
everything
all.
exactly, exactly. But they say, oh,
But
they,
again, this is this
yeah,
intelligentsia, that
that's it.
it's poison,
That's
poison for the
And
politics
it's
of.
very similar. So the intelligentsia in America is very similar. With the intelligentsia in Europe, they kind of essentially interact with one another, exchange ideas. So just like they assume 2016 was a fluke. Trump's gone. He's never coming back. The transatlantic establishment that they so revere, it's back, returned. The grown-ups have come back to power. It was always such a shallow reading of what had happened, that they were going to get into trouble in no time at all. And now they're in a lot of trouble. They're in deeply in Ukraine, and now they're saying, "Wait, what's Trump going to do?" And then he says, "I would say that there's a 5 to 10% chance that the surprise man, 47th U.S. president, will threaten to increase support for Ukraine in order to strong arm Vladimir Putin into a peace deal, as some of his pro-Ukrainian supporters, such as former U.S. Secretary Mike Pompeo, have urged." As Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky adroitly highlights, it's what I mean. He's always unctuous, adroit. So it was adroit.
Well,
Trump hates.
you can think of, when you hear Zelensky's name, you can think of a lot of things, and I won't mention it here. But adroit is not one of them.
I don't think so. No, Trump hates more than anything to look like a loser. So I looked up the link. What is this? What was it that he was so adroit? And he said This goes back to June of this year.
Is he quoting himself?
No, he's saying the loser thing. This line about the
No, but I
loser.
mean, is this did Timothy Garton-Ash write this?
No, this isn't. No, this was a separate article.
Okay.
This was no. This is a link to an article in the Guardian. Zelensky acknowledged that a re-elected Trump could, if he really wanted to, impose a crushing military defeat on Ukraine. He could cut off support, weapons, and money, and even make deals with Kiev's partners so they stop delivering. So they stop deliveries of vital arms. So it says Ukraine, barehanded without weapons, will not be able to fight a multi-million Russian army. Zelensky told The Guardian. Speaking inside his presidential headquarters, he said he thought this scenario was unlikely, but he said if it happened, there would be grave consequences for the US's standing in the world, as well as for Trump personally. Does he want to become a loser president? Do you understand what can happen? Zelensky said. I still don't see that it's adroit, because I'm not at all sure that Trump would see this, that he's a loser president. I mean, he might, but there's no, by no means is it would he necessarily see that he's a loser.
But it shows his own abdication for the responsibility of his
Yes.
country. It's not me; it's somebody else.
That's
Okay,
right. Exactly.
that's what the captured elite in Kiev have ended up with. Okay, well, you have no options at all.
That's
Okay,
right. No, that's absolutely right. And that's his decision. That was his decision. When Boris Johnson came to him and said, "Hey, you can sign this deal if you want. We're not going to acknowledge it." And he said, "Oh well, I'm not going to sign." Well, that's it. He abdicated all responsibility. Means the war would go on, but he and the Ukrainians would have to carry the can. It's not going to be Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson's not going to suffer anything.
he's not even in power anymore.
Not even power, but he's just making a ton of money. And he's going to go on making a ton of money. But, it's the Ukrainians are going to suffer. Anyway, to go back to Garton-Ash, he says, however, there's a 90 to 95% chance that he'll do exactly what he's repeatedly said he'll do and try to end the war by imposing a settlement on Ukraine. In July, he told Fox News, I would tell Zelensky no more, you've got to make a deal, although he did add that he would threaten to give Kiev a lot more, and in order to bring Putin, a lot more aid in order to bring Putin to the table. But the terms envisaged by his Vice President J.D. Vance, accepting the current territorial division of Ukraine and compelling it to concede neutrality, would be a great victory for Putin. Now, this is this thinking of Garton-Ash and the rest of him, but the question is still, and so what? I mean, it would bring the war to an end. Your only criterion for measuring these things is, well, it's a victory for Putin, therefore it must be bad. It wouldn't actually be such a great victory, but that's a different issue. But it's a kind of mindless approach. Oh, well, we can't do this because it's a victory for Putin, therefore the war must go on.
But it's geniuses like this that
right.
George, we're exhausted by it.
Yes,
is that there is no reflection on the predicate of this conflict whatsoever. Right. And if you started doing that, then you would be assessing it in a completely different way. Would be a great victory for Putin. Well, George and I would strongly disagree with that.
Exactly.
But he doesn't take into consideration what the Russians want. It's never mentioned.
No, that's exactly.
They want security,
right.
is what they want.
That's right.
They don't want victory. They don't want victory. They're not looking for victory.
That's right.
They're looking for security.
No, exactly. And that's the problem. They said, oh, they've got a piece of territory. That's not a victory for Russia, just, getting a piece of, a territory of Ukraine. That was never the objective. So, but he said, they never really think about what are the objectives of this war. So, we got to stop it because it's a victory for Putin. And then he goes, in reality, there's probably no deal that both Putin and Zelensky would currently accept. In a rare true statement, Putin's spokesperson Dmitry Peskov has observed, you can't end the Ukraine conflict overnight. What the US president can do, however, is to reduce US economic and military support so dramatically that Kiev is compelled to seek a ceasefire from a position of weakness. Worse still, this might create what the military expert Jack Watling has called a Brest-Litovsk scenario, with Ukraine scrambling to secure a deal from such a weak position that even the threat of a new enemy offensive might compel it to make more concessions, as happened to Russia itself when negotiating the 1918 Brest-Litovsk Treaty with Imperial Germany and its allies. But this goes back to the same mindless NATO argument, where we got to pour in more weapons and aid to Ukraine, because that's going to put it into a strong position. And to do what? What's it going to do? You keep doing this. You're doing it for 3 years. At some point, Ukraine is going to be in this really strong position to dictate peace terms. How? Why? How? What is the mechanism for that? It hasn't worked so far. And so we got to keep doing it, because otherwise, this is going to be the Brest-Litovsk scenario. So but that's what it is. So, well, that it's we got to just keep doing this, keep doing what we've been doing. It hasn't worked, but at some point it will work.
Based on what evidence?
Based on what evidence? So that's Garton Ash, and what is interesting here? There's another is because obviously there is a, see if I can get this. Yeah, I think this is it. No, it's not it. Stop share. Trying to.
That's Buddy snoring. It's not me.
And here we have this. Let's see if we can get this. So this is the in Newsweek, we have this speculation about the Donald Trump's Ukraine plan faces key tests. So we basically know the outlines of what is thought to be his peace plan, though he himself has never spelled this out. But J.D. Vance has suggested basically freezing the line of freezing the conflict at the current line of conflict, and plus a commitment by Ukraine not to apply for NATO membership for whatever 20 years. Don't know if that's going to be that will fly, well, but that's what J.D. Vance has suggested.
The foundational reasoning that George and I keep coming across is what NATO will accept.
Right.
Okay. I mean, that's basically it. Okay. I mean, it's a wish list. It's what's acceptable, what they think is doable, but they're missing half of the equation, much more than half of the equation. That's why Newsweek, I didn't even know it was still a thing. They fundamentally missed the point. Okay. And I tweeted last night, and I don't tweet very often, Ukraine will most likely be Trump's first foreign policy failure. And I'm going to stick to that until otherwise. Keep going.
Well, I think that's yeah. I mean, we'll have, yeah. So in part of Trump's peace plan, in addition to pushing for a ceasefire, his advisors.
First of all, a ceasefire is unacceptable for the Russians. Okay, so keep going.
Right. To push for a ceasefire, his advisors have uniformly recommended freezing the war in place, which would halt all conflict along the current front lines and have significant ramifications for both Russia and Ukraine.
Never explained why Russia would accept a ceasefire.
No, they don't. They don't really accept it, particularly as they don't really get anything in exchange for it, because the whole idea, oh, well, we won't have Ukraine inside NATO for 20 years. When first of all, why would anyone believe anything, any of these commitments? They're not worth the paper they're written on. Second of all, the Ukraine is already de facto a NATO member state. Ukraine has signed all these bilateral agreements with America, with Britain, with France, Germany. They're going to keep pouring in huge amounts of weaponry during whatever the interim period, which means Ukraine and NATO can start this up again within 5 years, within 10 years. So therefore it doesn't provide Russia with any kind of guarantees. So it's essentially, it'll just be a breathing space for NATO before it starts everything up again.
So it's just Minsk 1 and 2 in a different
Right,
form.
exactly. So by freezing the conflict, Russia would be allowed to retain the territory it has currently seized, around 20% of Ukraine, and Ukraine would have to abandon its efforts to join NATO, a key component of Zelensky's victory plan. But again, it doesn't really mean anything very much. They're not going to abandon joining NATO because they already have it. It's a de facto NATO state. If Ukraine were in NATO, Article 5 would be pretty much what Ukraine's getting now. I mean, Article 5 doesn't mean NATO is going to march in and wage war against Russia. They're going to be pouring in weaponry. That's all Article 5 ensues. So they've already got everything that they could get if they were a NATO member state.
Yeah, and it's obvious here that Ukraine would find a ceasefire acceptable under certain conditions. Russia doesn't. So there's no continuity here. There's no parity in.
No, I agree. I agree. But under that logic, Ukraine would retain parts of Kursk by freezing conflict along the current demarcation, which is seized approximately 500 miles in August in a surprise incursion. I don't think that's gonna fly. They're gonna keep a part of Kursk.
That's being mopped up right now. So
right. It's unclear whether Zelensky and Putin will agree to this, as the concession of land would seemingly undermine the reason the war began in February 2022.
You think? You think? Yeah.
Halting conflict on the front lines also falls into another portion of Trump's peace plan, which involves the creation of an 800-mile demilitarized zone, which both countries must agree to, but a member of Trump's team said American troops would not police. Regarding the demilitarization,
DMZ is pretty long.
That is, yeah. Regarding the demilitarized zone, Trump's team member said, we can do training and other support, but the barrel of the gun is going to be European. We're not sending American men and women to uphold peace in Ukraine, and we are not paying for it. Get the Poles, Germans, British, and French to do it.
How would that go down with the Poles, the Germans, the Brits?
Yeah, I don't know whether I don't know. I mean, maybe some dim-witted people are going to go for it, but it's not a great situation. But it does sort of.
And George, I mean, a ceasefire is a temporary cessation of the conflict. It's not peace.
So
Poles, Germans, British, and French are going to go into a war zone that is, for the moment, frozen. Wow. Yeah, sign me up. I mean, really?
Right. You see, it's extremely unlikely that NATO and Ukraine, if this current bunch stays in power in Kiev, they're going to start this up again within 5 years. They're just going to, they're going to say, hey, we lost all this territory, we got to get it back. It's always going to, start up again. And as you say, it's like Minsk 1 and 2. So, but what I think is most likely to happen, I think that right now the Biden people will escalate the war. They're going to try and pour everything they can into Ukraine and urge Ukrainians to do whatever they can so that when Trump comes in on January the 20th, he's got a real mess on his hands. I
Well, I
wouldn't.
mean, okay, I'm not really sure what more the Biden people can actually do than
Well,
beyond
I
what they
think
have.
removing those.
Let me finish. I'm agreeing with you, so let me agree with you. I'm not sure what more they can actually do. But one thing I think George and I are in agreement is they're going to make it as messy and as difficult and complicated as possible before they leave office.
Yeah,
They want to leave a minefield that's appropriate for
right.
this segment for Trump to have to traverse. Okay, that's
Yeah,
what's going on.
I agree.
What Obama did to Trump.
Exactly. It is like what Obama did when in December 2016, December and January, when he unleashed the intelligence agencies against the incoming Trump administration. But if, for instance, they now remove the restraints on Ukraine's use of missiles in Russian territory, and given what Putin has said, that we will then regard that as essentially we're at war with the United States, then that, Trump is going to come in, with Russia and America essentially in a state of war and said, hey, you wanted this job, you can have it.
Look, what is so frustrating for the both of us is that we have this plethora of articles right now. So, what is Trump's plan? Blah.
Right.
No, it's it should be what are the circumstances
Yeah.
in which the new Trump administration
Right.
is going to inherit. That's what needs to be discussed here,
Right.
and they're going to make it as difficult as possible
Right.
for Trump because what
Yep.
they want an escalation. They're not winning. There's no path to victory. So
Right.
the only alternative is to escalate and
That's
then
right.
see what happens.
That's right.
Maybe.
That's right. Look, there's one thing we can be absolutely certain of. Within an hour of Trump being Trump swearing in as president, it will be Trump's war. Ukraine will be Trump's war. Just like the war in Gaza, the war in Lebanon, these will all be Trump's wars. He will be blamed for anything that happens. And, every
And
time.
I will be among the first
Yeah, that's
to
it.
say it.
That's it. And everything that we've said, Biden's war and everything else, within an hour of, his being in office, it is Trump's war. And he'll be blamed for everything. Every time a hospital gets blown up or somebody gets killed, oh, this is on Trump. This is Trump's fault. And we know the way the Democrats play this game. I mean, they would absolutely say, hey, this is Trump. This is his war. Yeah. I mean, it's the way they did it with
No, I mean,
Nixon.
one of the things, think about it, everyone. George and I are saying this now, okay, on November 8th,
Yeah.
3 days after the election.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be how to weaken Russia, how to strategically inflict a defeat on Russia. This is how to strategically damage Donald
Yeah.
Trump. It
Yeah.
will shift.
That's right. No question. Because that's the fastest way in which the Democrats can lick their wounds after this debacle. You say, hey, this is his war. Look at the disaster that he is causing. And everyone else will quickly forget that this is, of course, Biden's war, and then say, yeah, it's Trump's war. I mean, and this is exactly what happened with Richard Nixon. The moment he was sworn in as president, Vietnam was Nixon's war. He got blamed for everything that was happening in Vietnam. But this is going to be even worse. And then it says political scientist and podcaster Ian Bremmer. Do you know this guy, Ian Bremmer?
I do.
Awful kind of gas bag. But it was always he's always taken seriously. He's always been quoted in every
Okay,
newspaper
this is
article.
everyone just shorthand here. This is a resume for absolute failure at every
Right. Yes,
failure,
exactly.
failure, failure.
Yes, that's right. He said, quote, Putin, of course, really wanted Trump to win. Ian Bremmer knows this. Okay. He did the most in favor of Trump illegally, really, illicitly, to try to interfere with the US election. As we saw, including those bomb threats that were called in yesterday. So he's taking seriously these nonsensical bomb threats that no one's actually been identified. And of course, bomb threats are themselves meaningless. If there's no bomb, then that's just a sort of a meaningless gesture. And why would a bomb threat help Trump? I don't get, even if
Well, that's why it was most likely a Democratic operative. If
exactly.
everybody, George, what is the date of this Newsweek article?
This is, I think this is today.
Okay, so he said, okay, Putin, of course, really wanted Trump to win. He did his most in favor of Trump illegally, illicitly to Trump, etc. This is not 2000. This is not December 2016. This is today.
This is today. Yeah, that's right. Fortunately, it didn't actually impact the outcome. But if you're Putin, this has been a fantastic few weeks for you.
Okay, so George and I are of the opinion that the only thing that the Russians can expect now is an escalation. So why would this be a fantastic
Right.
few weeks for
Right.
Putin?
Exactly. You're right. You're right. You're absolutely right. If you're Russian leaders, I think there's going to be an escalation.
Yep.
Absolutely. That's going to happen in the immediate term. Bremer continued. You're gaining territory on the ground in Ukraine. You've got the North Koreans sending you thousands of troops, in addition to all of the munitions and ordnance that you're fighting with. Now, well, this is completely, first of all, again, the issue of the territory in Ukraine, that doesn't, there was never a wartime objective for Russia. The issue of the North Koreans, it's a great deal for the North Koreans. It doesn't do much for Russians. I mean, what's 8,000 or 10,000 North Koreans going to do for Russia? They're not familiar with the terrain. They haven't fought a war in 70 years. They don't know anything about modern warfare, the use of drones, and warfare has changed. But it's a very good deal for North Korea, because now they're going to get cut price energy, and Russia is now essentially committed. They say, hey, we've got a strategic partnership. We came to your assistance. Now, when we're in a confrontation with South Korea or the United States, I hope you're going to come to our assistance. And Russia probably would. So it's a great deal for North Korea. It's not such a great deal for Russia.
I wish that the Kremlin would be clearer on all of this here, because then you get this ridiculous loose rhetoric.
Right.
I think it's unnecessary, and I think it could be cleared up. Yeah, they have a security agreement. Okay, I've said from the very beginning, the high command of the North Korean military would salivate at being able to be at the table watching all of this, is because George said they haven't fought a war in 70 years.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
They want to be an observer. Okay.
Right.
I think that's really essentially what it is.
I think so, but there's the corollary to that is that, hey, we came through as your strategic partner. So, they would expect something, so Russia to reciprocate. Should North Korea ever be in a conflict? I mean, after all, none of the members of the Collective Security Treaty Organization have come through for Russia. I mean, we heard nothing from Kazakhstan or Kyrgyzstan. I mean, but North Korea has done something, as has Iran. And so, the Russians, the Russians generally are very good about reciprocating. Somebody's done them a favor, they will do a favor. So it's a good deal for North Korea. It does nothing for Russia. And then he says, now Trump, who says he wants to end the war and end the war in a day, which means the territory you've taken, you can keep taking, that you can keep, and that Americans have spent way too much money on Ukraine. This is all music to Putin's ears. This is all fantasy world. I mean, this guy, Ian Bremmer. I mean, he's just, I don't know, is it failing upwards, or people have this extraordinary reputation for expertise, like Fareed Zakaria. Oh, let's hear what Fareed Zakaria has to say about something, because there's nothing of any interest. I mean, all of this is just empty speculation. And then if Kiev
and anti-Trump
and anti-Trump, of course, if Kiev intends to use Kursk as a bargaining chip, that would apparently undermine at least a part of the alleged Trump peace plan, with both sides having stated in the past that territorial concessions would be a non-starter in the negotiations. And again, everything is going to be, whatever happens by the time that these negotiations takes place, which would be, next spring, I doubt whether Kursk would be a bargaining chip by next spring. Um, Russia has said it will not enter into peace talks until Ukraine pulls back its troops. It hasn't said that. From territory now under Moscow's control.
Certainly not peace talks. The Kremlin has made it very clear that any talk of any kind of negotiations is impossible, but not peace talks.
But Russia said that, well, they've said that, the fastest way that we can get a ceasefire is if Ukraine pulls out from the four oblasts and withdraws its application for NATO membership. However, that doesn't mean that it will not enter into peace talks. It's like, well, that's you want peace, you'll get us. Yeah, that's it. You'll get peace from us if you do this. But it's never said we will not enter into peace talks. It's always said we are ready for peace talks. So it's never said that that's the condition for peace talks. Anyway, so that's and then we've got this other thing, and I think that this is going to be a real problem for Trump, which is the Middle East. I think it's going to be a even worse problem for him. Because at least with Ukraine, he's going to have voices. He's going to have the neocons. There are neocons within his team, but there are going to be contrary voices within his administration. I mean, I think Douglas McGregor, may have a role in a Trump administration. I think Tucker Carlson may have some kind of a role in his administration. I don't think Tucker Carlson would have a job, but I think he would have a role at least as an advisor.
Oh, Trump has Tucker on speed dial.
Exactly. So there will be voices, and JD Vance. I mean, he's obviously going to will play a role. So there will be voices urging him to bring the war in Ukraine to an end. That doesn't mean that'll happen, but there will be voices. The Middle East, that's a really bad one. I mean, because I don't know anyone among his advisors who essentially takes the view that this is that this wholehearted support of Israel is crazy.
George is absolutely right. I mean, I think there's a lot of players in the Middle East that are keeping their powder dry, waiting for Trump to come.
Right.
Okay.
All right. Yes, that's true. So here's the Wall Street Journal says Trump to renew maximum pressure campaign against Iran. Relations with Tehran, which sought to assassinate the president-elect and other former officials, are likely to be even worse this time around. We have to take these sort of stories with a pinch of salt. I'm just saying this is an article in the Wall Street Journal. That doesn't
Wall Street
mean
Journal is so irresponsible in writing.
I agree.
So
I agree. And a lot of it is just wishful thinking because the people who write this and their sources, that's what they want. They want America to escalate its involvement on behalf of Israel. And then here it says, President-elect Donald Trump plans to drastically increase sanctions on Iran and throttle its oil sales as part of an aggressive strategy to undercut Tehran's support of violent Middle East proxies and its nuclear program, according to people briefed on his early plans. Trump took a dim view of Iran during his first term, aborting a six-nation agreement with Tehran that sought to curb Iran's nuclear weapons work. He also imposed what was described as a maximum pressure strategy in hopes Iran would abandon ambitions for a nuclear weapons, stop funding and training what the US considers terrorist groups, and improve its human rights record. But the question then arises, Trump comes in with a fairly extensive domestic agenda. So then you have to ask, why would Trump want to escalate a conflict with Iran? I mean, it's a very ambitious domestic agenda. He's talking, with trade, with immigration. He's got an economic plan. Plus dismantling the administrative state and all of those things.
But what this is, George, I mean, this Wall Street Journal piece, it's so boilerplate. It's really
right.
There's no imagination here. What is the Wall Street Journal? Why is it doing this?
Yeah.
It is speaking on behalf of the intelligence community. This
Yep.
is just, they're an errand boy.
Yep. I
This
agree.
article.
I agree. I agree. That's exactly what they're doing. Um, but when he
And
takes
they
off,
will
yeah.
and they will like Trump if he does it.
That's
That's the quid pro quo. We
that's right.
will like you
We
if
will
you.
like you. Exactly. As they always did. Every time he bombed someone or killed someone, okay, great. Now Trump is really.
Presidential.
That's right.
Presidential.
Presidential, exactly. Now he has finally adopted the mantle of presidential leadership. Um, when he takes office on January the 20th, Trump's approach to Iran is likely to be colored by the knowledge that its agents tried to assassinate him and former top national security aides after they left office. Now, again, you have to sort of think there's no evidence for any of that. There's no evidence at all that Iran was behind this. And you would have to think Trump, who knows something about the intelligence agencies, isn't just going to accept blandly the assurances of that. Oh yeah, Iran is really desperate to assassinate you. Yeah. It's not no one here. No one here is responsible. It's all Iran. Yeah.
Particularly since the new Iranian president, he actually is reaching out the hand for
Right.
a readjustment of
Right.
relations with the West. That's what he was elected
Yeah.
on. That was his platform.
Right.
None of this is ever mentioned whatsoever. Again, reaching out and trying to resolve issues, it's unacceptable.
Right.
The United States cannot take the answer yes. They can never accept yes.
That's right. That's exactly right. But the interesting thing is that, in the case of the first assassin, we don't know yet the links that he had. There's no evidence. No one's come along with any evidence that he had any links to Iran. Um, in the case of the second assassin, we know that the links are there with Ukraine, and if he has links to Ukraine, he has links to the American and Western intelligence agencies. That's where he is. There's nothing here, nothing in his record to suggest that he had any Iranian connections. And I would imagine Trump knows that. So when they tell him, when he gets to hear from Avril Haines, the director of national intelligence, oh yeah, Iran's behind this, that he's not going to buy into it. Anyway, Iran is believed to be seeking revenge for a 2020 U.S. drone strike that killed Qasem Soleimani, head of Iran's covert military operations. That's not how Iran operates. No, because it's not going to do that and essentially jeopardize its own existence. I mean, you don't go
Well,
ahead and try to assassinate a presidential candidate if you're Iran and relative to the United States.
Iran doesn't go around and assassinate political leaders. Israel does that.
Israel does it. Exactly. The people briefed on Trump's plans and in touch with his top advisors said the new team would move rapidly to try to choke off Iran's oil income, including going after foreign ports and traders who handle Iranian oil. That would recreate the strategy that the former president adopted in his first term with mixed results.
At least they admit with mixed results.
Mixed results, yeah. I think you're going to see sanctions go back on. You're going to see much more, both diplomatically and financially, that they're trying to isolate Iran. I think the perception is that Iran is definitely in the position of weakness right now, and now is an opportunity to exploit this weakness.
Yeah, but they never, in articles like this, again, take some distance and look at this here. What is the imperative?
Yeah,
What's
right.
the imperative? We still don't know. Well, why does he have to take these measures now?
Yep, exactly.
Okay?
That's
No,
right.
it's all about Israel. I mean,
Exactly.
People that wrote this is flacking for Israeli policy. Why is it, so imperative that it has to be done on January 20th? Oh my goodness.
Right. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Because the whole point of this whole belligerence, why there's belligerence towards Iran, it's all about Israel. There's nothing at all. There's no reason whatsoever why the United States needs to have bad relations with Iran. The only reason for it is Israel. Israel, which has identified Iran as the leader of the anti-Israel opposition. But for the United States, there's just simply there's no rationality for it. It's not, all this talk, oh, it's damaging American interests. It's not damaging any American interests. It's not in what way is Iran hurting any American interests? Iran's just not in a position to hurt American
Well, I mean,
interests.
here's an idea. Well, what Trump should do, in my opinion at least, is that on day one, give a call to the Iranian president and said, let's meet and let's see
Yep.
what is the problem.
Right.
We've hated each other for so long. I've forgotten why. Yeah, we hate
Well,
each other.
it is.
Okay, why don't we just sit down and say, well,
All right.
this is what I think. This is what you think.
Yeah.
I know people will mock me for saying this, but that's the only way to avoid the
Right.
coming conflict.
Right.
Just
Right.
what the hell is this all about?
That's exactly right. Exactly. But what is it all about? You're planning on restoring the Pahlavis in Tehran? There's no takers. No one's going to want the. No one in Iran wants the Pahlavis to come back. And it's more than 40 years ago. It's not going to happen. So what exactly is the beef with Iran? Now, and we talked about this before, during his first term, he was under the influence of all sorts of people like his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and the Adelsons. And they were, of course, pushing the Israel line. But why should he continue with this? And so this Wall Street Journal article, oh, he's always going to do this, because that's
Well,
what he did in his first term.
George, as usual, asks the most important question here. Is that Donald J. Trump, I'm assuming he will be inaugurated. There's still maybe some questions out there. But, when he takes office, it's going to look, I don't need their money anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. With his ego and his narcissism, it's Donald J. Trump. This is legacy time. Okay. Yeah. You look at Barack Obama. What is his legacy? It's in tatters right now. Okay. That was an unforced error on his part, but I could care less. Joe Biden, he'll be lucky if he's remembered. And if he's remembered at all, it'll be about genocide. Okay. And about a useless war in Europe against Russia. Donald Trump, what do you want to be remembered for? Okay. Because you have the power. Yeah, you're going to have to bust a lot of heads around you. Okay. But this is your chance to break out of this cycle, this psychopathic cycle.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And I think that if he does go down this path of confrontation with Iran, not only is it going to hamper his domestic agenda, he's going to become very unpopular very quickly because he'll get blamed for the war, and then this big historic landslide win will just mean nothing.
Mean nothing.
Yeah.
So the people that are licking their wounds right now, they're not going to be able to do much about domestic policy in the United States, and they are lamenting that a lot. But that's not where the money is. Okay. Social Security reform, who's going to step up? I want to get involved in that because there's so much money involved. No, there isn't. Okay.
Right.
But foreign wars is a very different thing. And this will be Trump's Achilles heel because they will go after him with they need a path to really damage him. This is the easiest path right there.
Easiest path. Again, we've been around a long time, and we've been through elections that were historic, transformative. They didn't last very long. Lyndon Johnson won that huge victory in '64. By 1966, Republicans swept the House elections. By '68, Johnson was so unpopular he couldn't even go to his party's convention. Nixon wins landslide '72. By he's out of office within 18 months. Ronald Reagan, big landslide win in 1984. He gets almost impeached within 2 years over Iran-Contra. So these things, they're evanescent. I mean, unless you make good use of your landslide win, you're gone. Within 2 years, that's it. You've lost the control of one of the branches of government, and then you're a lame duck. And you'll be impeached, because if the Democrats get back they take the House. It's looked like the Republicans will hold the House with a tiny majority. But if the Democrats back in, first thing they'll do is impeach him. First thing. I mean, they're already drafting the impeachment papers.
For the last 50 years, Iran has been a cudgel that has been thrown around without really any kind of foundational reason, to be honest, George. Okay. But see, this is a way that will create wedges within the Republican Party. See, everybody's backslapping themselves right now. Oh, we got the shit libs. Oh, yeah. Everybody's, great. Enjoy it. Okay. Enjoy it.
Enjoy it while it lasts. Yeah.
Enjoy it while it lasts, but it's not going to last very long at all.
No.
Okay? And what George and I think we're proposing here is, Trump, if you're going to survive and you're going to have a legacy, you've got to be bold, okay? Really bold. You've got to use this amazing victory. Anything I could have comprehended a week ago. Anything, okay? But that's ephemeral, okay? You can't hang on to it forever, okay? You've got to use it. You've got to be, because it has a power of its own, okay? Right. If you squander it, I'm sorry, I'm very pessimistic about this. I think it will be squandered. Donald Trump could be in trouble very early.
Very early. I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree, because they're whetting their appetite for, the moment he takes over, the Middle East and the Ukraine will be Trump's wars. So every time Netanyahu blows up some refugee camp, hey, it's on Trump. Look at that burning baby. That's Trump. He's going to get blamed for every single thing, and then his popularity will very quickly fade. And once his popularity fades, he's going to be heading for defeat in the midterms. Once you lose, one of the houses of Congress, you're done. I mean, you're then essentially, vulnerable to attack by the opposition. So he's going to make use of it. You don't have in American politics. You really have a very, very small window. That the so-called honeymoon period. That's when you have to make use of this opportunity. You bungle it. And this kind of talk about, he's going to do this and this to Iran, that's the fastest way to absolute disaster.
No, there will be no honeymoon. There is no honeymoon here. What we have to reimagine what that time frame is. That's the time when you get shit done, okay? Because they're going to be coming after you like termites, borrowing into your house, okay? You've got to act quick, bold, and decisively, okay? Right. And you can make a difference. Because George and I contend very strongly, ever since we started this podcast, people want peace. They will side with diplomacy if you know how to do it, okay? Now, he's learned. He was president. He learned from his mistake. Well, that's open to question completely, okay? And I have made it very clear, even on my program, he makes the wrong steps, I'm throwing in the towel right into his face, because you were warned. You were warned.
Right. No, that's exactly right. And I mean, if he comes along, goes down this path of a confrontation with Iran and an escalation, possibly sort of shooting war with Iran, then that's it. I mean, it's
even Russia, George,
and then Russia, of course, and Ukraine. In other words, people will say, hey, you came along as the peace candidate, and now it's worse. Now you're basically you're almost on the brink of a shooting war with Russia. You're on the brink of a shooting war with Iran. It's on you, and then that's it. His administration will already be over, and that's why you're absolutely right. He needs to be bold, because at this stage, he's got everybody's really at his mercy now, because he pulled this off. No one really thought he could pull it off. This is the time to do something daring, because if you fail now, no one's going to be afraid of you in 6 months' time. So now, whatever Marco Rubio says or Lindsey Graham says, they don't have any power against him. They wouldn't dare to move against him, so simply because he pulled this extraordinary win off. But if he fails, then they are going to move against him.
What, in all seriousness, he needs somebody like McGregor.
Yeah.
Maybe not McGregor himself, but someone like McGregor that's just gonna. And unfortunately, I may regret saying this one day, but you need somebody with kind of like a military discipline approach. Just saying to people in the State Department, Defense Department, they, no, we're doing something differently right now. If you're not on board and I'm watching, you're out of here. Okay. Yeah. Sue me later, okay? But we've got a window, we got an agenda, and we're going to get it done. And you, Vindman, and you, Vindman, and Vindman, you're not going to stop us this time. That's the imperative right now, okay? Because we know what the future portends. Look at the Wall Street Journal article George just showed us.
That's right. Exactly.
Those are the Vindmans. They wrote it. The Vindmans.
The Vindmans, exactly. No, absolutely. That says, this is kind of a wish list. Hey, Christmas is coming early. We've got Trump, and this is what a lot of these people are salivating about. Hey, he's really going to give everything Israel what he wants. If he does that again, you can kiss your administration goodbye. You'll essentially already be a lame duck within 3 months.
But see, I'll tell you how vicious this and evil this is, because they want Trump to do all these things, knowing it probably could fail.
Yeah.
It probably will fail.
Yeah.
This escalate. It'll probably fail. It'll blow up in Donald Trump's face.
Yes, absolutely, and it will, because if you sell yourself as the peace candidate, hey, I am the one who's going to bring peace. He said this over and over again. I'm going to bring peace in the Middle East. I'm going to bring peace to Ukraine, and then you haven't done it, and in fact, it's got worse. Then you basically lost everything. You've lost your entire cachet. You've lost this the mandate that you got in the election, and the election will be forgotten pretty quickly. So but last November I really did well. No one cares about how well you did in November when you've got this all these crises on your hands, which you get blamed for. So
and particularly when that the outgoing Biden administration is going to make it as tough on you as possible.
Absolutely. That's the really serious part. We'll talk about that another time. What the Biden administration will do, I think, in both cases, I think they're going to try and make life as difficult as possible for the incoming Trump team.
Yeah, and what does this have to do with peace? What does this have to do with national security? What does this have to do with American interests?
No, yeah, exactly. And and if since that was your big calling card, you're saying this is your calling card. You're going to deal with this immigration problem, the border. You're going to deal with trade. You're going to bring manufacturing jobs to America. You're going to dismantle the administrative state, the deep state. It's a full agenda. There's all these things that are not going to be easy. There's going to be a lot of resistance to all of that, and you're going to essentially waste your time on pointless wars that have nothing to do with American national interest.
And again, if you see this quasi fake autopsy going on, how did this all happen? No, that's the surface. They're regrouping, and they're planning, and they're prepared.
Yep.
You think Victoria Nuland really cares one way or another if the Democrats did well in Pennsylvania or Michigan? No, that's not their agenda. Their agenda is to destroy anyone in their way. Yep. And Donald Trump is one very big target right now. What they want, George, again, this is how petty and small these people are. They want to take that smirk off his face as soon as possible.
You're absolutely right. And then boom, in no time at all, the Democrats are back. After this historic victory. I mean, again, go back to Nixon's landslide, 1972, historic landslide, boom, transformative. He's transformed American politics. 74, the Democrats are back, bigger, nastier than ever. Things change very quickly in politics. So you got to, use this opportunity as quickly and as effectively as possible. But this, if you go down this path, then you can kiss this. You can kiss the mandate goodbye.
Okay, I want to end on this. George and I never talk in advance about what we're going to talk about ever. Okay, sometimes we should, but we don't. Okay, but this conversation's been very instructive to me because I've obviously been thinking about these issues. George does the forensic side, and it's really interesting how we came to a common mind about this because we didn't agree in advance, but through our dialogue right here, looking at all of the potential possibilities that could be played out. That's how you learn. This is how you think. You bounce off ideas. We don't always agree, George and I, but we kind of get to the point
Right.
after an hour and a half. Okay, sometimes it takes longer, but no, this is the way this is how you learn how to think
Right.
and how to
Right.
come up with new
Exactly.
ideas.
That's right. Exactly.
I guess I'm patting you on the back, George.
No, that's right. No, I couldn't agree more. That's it. That's exactly it. Yeah.
All right, everybody. Part one of how many parts? Who knows? Okay, but George and I we're planning a flag right now, and you might not salute it now, but I'm betting pretty soon you will. Okay, this is the Gaggle with Peter and George. We're on local, so please go to thegaggle.locals.com. Today is Friday. We'll reconvene on Sunday, and we have a live stream at 10, which is 6 p.m. my time. I made a compromise with George.
Yes, exactly. Live stream Monday, but we're going to do another a wrap on Sunday. And above all, we have to take into consideration the hounds, who are very, very dissatisfied. It's bad enough that they have to endure a winter in Moscow, but a winter in Moscow with an empty tip jar, that's just intolerable. And they say, hey, we do all the work here, and we get nothing out of it. I mean, hey, I'm doing the heavy lifting, and what am I getting out of it? So if you have a few bob in your pocket, whip it out, dunk them in the tip jar. We're very grateful for all of your help, friendship, and support. The more you're able to donate, the more of these videos we can make, the more we can improve on the technology, and maybe we can somehow appease. We can appease the dogs.
I took Apple to a vet 2 weeks ago. You know what the vet said? He said, she said to us, "You guys look similar," meaning me and Apple. Think about that. And no one ever compared me to, you look like a Chihuahua. Okay.
Yeah, well, exactly. I think that kind of that happens. Yeah. So, but they want money. I mean, that's the key. So remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye bye.